everybody. I wanted to take this time to make this video, blog, whatever, um, to share my story on how Jalen and I got here to where we are. And um, again, if this is your first time checking out my video, it's only my second video, so feel free to go back and check out my first video. It's pretty short and simple to the point, but the reason that I'm making these videos is just to spread awareness, to share with you all a little bit of our journey, my son and I, with autism. He's 13 years old, and I'm going to give you the backstory so that you kind of just know how we got here and how my son became autistic. A little bit of background about myself. I was 18 when I got pregnant with my son, and he was my very first pregnancy. No complications. He came actually literally 2 days before his actual due date. I delivered him vaginally. There were no complications during my pregnancy, no complications during my labor or delivery, and I took home my baby boy. So fast forward, he's developing normally. He potty trained before his second birthday. He walked before his first birthday. He was right on target. I was one of those moms from the time that I was pregnant, which I'm sure a lot of any of you moms or first-time mothers read that book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. Yeah, that was me. I was all in that book. And then I had the follow-up book. I think it was like the first 3 years or something like that. So I was following and just making sure that he was on target, that he was on pace for just certain milestones, and he was meeting them to a point. Around Jalen's second birthday, I took him to the doctor. I want to say this had to be just maybe a few months before or a few months after his second birthday. Took him to the doctor and he got a series of shots. And when I took him home, I don't recall anything weird going on at that very time. But I remember waking up one day with my child and saying, this is not my baby. Like, what's happened to him? Jalen was a very mild-mannered, he's still a very mild-mannered person, but he was a very mild-mannered baby. He literally did not cry unless he was just really hungry or he wasn't feeling well. Other than that, even when he was wet or, pooped, he wouldn't make a big fuss. He didn't fuss. He laughed a lot. He made eye contact. He was just normal, with his milestones. So after he got these shots, I didn't think about it then, and I didn't know. I was just a young mother trying to do the right thing by my child, making sure that I stayed up on his doctor's appointments, making sure that I took care of him, that I fed him the best of foods when I was pregnant. I was on a very strict diet. I don't even know how I followed the diet the way that I did, but I was on a very strict diet when I was pregnant with him because I knew that I was carrying precious cargo. I knew that I was only going to be pregnant with this child one time, and it was important to make sure that I gave him every possible positive thing that I could. Everything that I ate, I was very conscious of. So going back, when he was around about 2 years old, I remember saying, this child is not the same child that I had yesterday. And he just was acting differently at that time. I didn't know what it was, hadn't thought anything of it. And fast forward, he continues to develop, but at a very slow pace. And let me say let me not say he continued to develop, and I'm not going to say that he didn't continue to develop. What I will say is I very distinctly remember saying that it felt like somebody had hit the pause button on him. This was a child that had walked before his first birthday, that made eye contact, that, was saying some very basic words, and had potty trained, and now he is only able to speak gibberish. Going into his third year, his fourth year, my son was not able to say complete sentences. Now, I had a group of girlfriends that also had kids at the same time. Some were boys and a few were girls. And none of these other children were experiencing the same delay. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on those kids, the other kids that I knew. I was keeping an eye on the book and what it was saying. And at the same time, I was saying to myself, okay, I don't want to categorize him with every child because children are different. Some children develop differently. They develop at a different pace. But in my mind, I kept saying at the same time, something isn't right. I kept asking, I asked his pediatrician, I said, he's not really talking. Something isn't right. She said, don't worry about it. He'll be fine. She brushed me off. She brushed me off for about a year. I ended up firing her because she was not giving me answers and she wasn't doing her job to me as his pediatrician. So I asked his pre-K teacher. No, he seems fine to me. Once he got out of VPK and he went into pre-K, rather, I asked his VPK teacher at that time, and she felt like nothing was wrong. He was on track with his development. But I knew that something wasn't right. My son wasn't speaking in complete sentences. He was having a very difficult time communicating. He would get really frustrated because we didn't understand, and it was a lot of just blah 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 blah, pointing, not real sentences. At this time, again, I knew nothing about autism. I knew nothing about anything. That I was completely lost. I was completely lost. I had no clue what was going on, and nobody with a professional license seemed to be able to tell me anything either. I fast forward the story as it continues with this delayed speech, the delayed development. We get to he's 6 years old, and I continue to ask questions and continue to ask questions. Had a new pediatrician. The new pediatrician recommended that I take him to a developmental pediatrician, and this was the first time that I had ever taken him, to any type of specialist. So I took him to the developmental pediatrician, and he just kind of watched him and observed him. And this guy was really thick glasses. He had thrush or something around his mouth. He was like something really out of a science movie, probably. But this man looked at me and he said, he's autistic. And I was like, what is that? And he explained to me what autism was. He said, if he's autistic, which I believe that he is, but you need to get him tested. He said, it is so slight that it could go unnoticed to the naked eye. The average physician will miss it because they'll think that there's something else wrong and not know what it is, but they're not going to think that he's autistic. So I then proceeded with getting him tested. And that's how I found out that Jalen was autistic. 6 years old. I had even taken him to the University of South Florida in Tampa, and they were not able to correctly diagnose him. That was a complete waste of time. So I spent a lot of time, a lot of years spinning my wheels. I spent a lot of time and some years crying, feeling alone, feeling like, what's going on with my child? When something is going on with your kid and you don't know how to help them or what to do, it's painful. It's painful when you want to help them and you can't help them because you don't know what's wrong. So for me, it was a relief to get a diagnosis because then I knew where to start. I knew what I at least had somewhere to look and a path to look at. And that's how we got here.